Hello and welcome to another How to Code Well PHP tutorial. Today we're going to take a look at the server variable. Now the server variable is a variable that you have in your PHP installation that will give you some information about the user as well as the request as well as the server itself. So this is kind of like a reserved keyword, if you will. So what I'm going to do is take a look at it from the perspective of the command line, and then I'm going to take a look at it from the perspective of just the web server itself. So running a PHP file in a web server. So the PHP command line, let's jump into it. We're in the command line now. And if I did PHP-A to get into the interactive mode, I've talked about this before in a previous tutorial. I'll put that in a link at the bottom. So what we can do is do a var dump, and again I've done a tutorial on var dump and print r, which I will also link to this as well. So one thing I should tell you is that the server variable is an associative array, okay? So it's an array of values keyed by some sort of verbose string, okay? So what we can do is print that out using this var dump function. So in these parentheses here, in the call of var dump, we're going to do $. Now it has to be spelt like this, underscore. An underscore basically denotes that this is a reserved word. Server. Whoops, spelt correctly would help. Okay, so if we press enter, we can now see that we have the output of this, which is the var dump, and we can see that the keys are all strings, and some of the output is, some of the output isn't, some of it's integers and so forth. But we can see all sorts of bits and pieces, some very useful stuff. So for example, the request time that I've got highlighted here, the document root, which is currently itself. We can see other bits and pieces like the printing of the working directory. So that's the working directory on my machine here. We can see other bits and pieces like the shell scripts, the gem homes, and all of that stuff. Stuff that is specific to the PHP command line. Okay, so this is the difference between the PHP command compared to the PHP on the web server. So when you're doing a request to a PHP file on the web server using something like Apache or Nginx or what have you. So the next thing I'm going to do is just exit this and then just clear that screen down, because what I want to do is do this but from the perspective of a web server request rather than a command line. So what we need to do is spin up an internal server. And as I've mentioned in a previous tutorial, PHP has an internal server that we can use, which is what I'm going to do now. But before I do that, though, I need to actually create a document root where all of this stuff is going to belong. So I'm currently in the PHP part of the How to Code Well GitHub repository. So I'm just going to make another directory called PHP-server. Whoops, sorry, bear with me a minute. Like that. I'm going to go into there, and you know what? I think what I'm going to do, I'm going to do this in PHP Storm rather than in Vim, just because it's easier to highlight what it is that I'm doing. Okay, so what I'm going to do is just create a new file in here, and I'm just going to call it example-1.php. Excellent. Okay, let's save that. Excellent. Okay, so we have this blank file here, which is just example1.php. And what we can do is, I'm just going to save it as a blank thing for now. We're going to spin up the internal server now. Okay, so what I'm going to do is just spin it up in a local server. And again, I've done this in a previous tutorial. I've explained what all of this means. So if you want to find out what all of that does, then check out that link below. So we've started that local server now, which means that I should be able to get into Safari and get to that address, which we are in. But because we don't have anything in there yet, it's just a blank page. Let's just double check that. Yep, that's fine. Okay. Okay, so back into the IDE. Let's go and print that out again. So as before with the command line, we're going to do var dump. And in here, we're going to do $_server, all in capitals, like not like that, like that. Let's save that. Okay, so if I refresh this, we can now get that output. Let's just bring that up a little bit to make it a little bit more easier to read. So what we've got here is the server variable, which is, like I said, an associative array, and we've got different output here. We've got the document root, which actually is the full path to that the PHP server document root. We've got the remote address, we've got the remote port, we've got the actual server that we're running, which is PHP 7.1. The ports, the server names, that's correct. We've got the request URI, which is very important, which is the actual file that we're running. We've got the script file name, which is the full file path to that example1.php. We've got the cookies, which is set by PHP Storm. We've also got something which is very important, which is the user agent. So if you wanted to discover who was actually accessing your pages, you could use the HTTP_user_agent. Now notice these are all in capitals. These are all capitalized. These are basically reserved for PHP. The whole underscore-ness is like a reserved collection, if you will. So you've also got underscore get and underscore post variables, which I'm going to talk about later on in another tutorial. But we've also got things like the request time, so how long that request actually took in. I think this must be in milliseconds or something, as well as how to encode this request so it's in a gzip with deflate enabled. So all of those things, they're very, very useful, and we can actually pick out certain ones. So for example, if I wanted to find out let's just pick one out by random. Let's just pick out the actual script name, which is the request URI. Let's copy that, go back into PHP Storm. Because it's an array, we can treat it just like you would treat a normal array, and just pump that through. So save that and refresh this, and that is just we've got because it's in var dump, we have this output here. Whoops. But that's the value. Probably a better way of explaining that is if we just did, instead of var dump, we just did an echo of that. So refresh. That's the output of that server value, which is the request_URI. So very important values that you can actually access from PHP using its internal request. Now this kind of starts the journey of talking about different variables that PHP has inbuilt. So we're going to be talking about post variables, we're going to talk about request variables, we're going to talk about get variables, and yes, there are 3 and they are all slightly different. Some of them are quite different. But anyway, if you haven't done so already, please do subscribe. We've got some tutorials like this every Tuesday, a web chat every Friday, plus we do a live stream on Twitch, which is twitch.tv/howtocodewell on a weekend, which is normally a Saturday. So do check that out. I'll post on there when I do that as well. But thanks ever so much for watching. Speak to you again next time. Cheers. Bye.